Actually, what I put on the screen yesterday was a second opinion from the first psychiatrist that saw him. And the second opinion, because the warden asked for a second opinion, was the man that made the diagnosis of psychosis not otherwise specified. Now, if I may complete my answer, I appreciate it. Thank you. Secondly, there's absolutely no indication to show that he malingered physical disease. As late as 2008, he was still showing an ejection fraction, which is the amount of blood, ejection fraction, amount of blood crossing the ventricle as impaired. He was still noting that he could only walk a few blocks. He had mild pulmonary hypertension. This was a year after his cardiac disease. So it wasn't my reflection of malingering or psychosis. It was really the jail's reflection of psychosis. And it wasn't my reflection of his physical illness. It's really the VA and the Cleveland Clinic's reflection of his physical illness.
You say as of 2008 he was having physical problems.
He continued to, yes.
And you have looked at the crime scene photographs, have you not?
Yes, I have.
And can you explain, if he was having physical problems, how these mounds of dirt got carried 3 flights of stairs upstairs to that 3rd floor bedroom or downstairs? How did that happen if he was having a physical problem? Or how did it happen that he was able to carry the bodies out to the backyard and bury them? What kind of physical problems was he having at that point in time?
I really can't speak to that, sir. I don't know.
Well, doesn't it contradict this allegation that he has physical limitations? You've testified that he could not go back to work because of physical limitations, because he can't breathe or he's shortness of breath or whatever it was. You don't think that's significant?
Not only do I think it's significant, but what I do know is that on the job that he had, it was the employers that said he was not able to go back to work. It was the employers that were saying of the difficulty that he had. There's no way that I can explain that. It was the Cleveland Clinic that made that physical finding, sir.
If Anthony Sowell is telling you, or he's telling the jail psychiatrist, that in the past, he has heard audio or video hallucinations, is that not at least a cause to see if he's malingering as to those symptoms?
And I did that.
Excuse me?
I did that.
What did you do?
I looked at the medical records that reflected from the jail a completely non-biased. May I finish, please? May I finish, please?
Go ahead.
Thank you. I appreciate that. A completely non-biased psychiatrist that was part of the jail system, not part of his defense team, that made that diagnosis.
Well, that's based on words coming from Anthony Sowell's mouth, is it not?
Yes.
Him saying it so doesn't make it so. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Dr. Woods. If you are rendering an opinion about psychiatric manifestations from a medical condition, all right?
Yes.
How can you not consider whether Mr. Sowell had any motives for the 11 aggravated murders and 3 attempted murders that did not flow from a mental disease or defect, such as hatred or intense anger toward women or something like sexual sadism? How can you not consider that?
Overruled.
Not only would I consider it, but I would rule it out. First of all, the reason is because I was not asked to render an opinion as to right or wrong. And those issues would have been relevant to insanity, which was not claimed, those issues in terms of malingering as well would have been relevant to, did the psychosis that he claimed have any impact on his behavior, which as it relates to the victims. He never said that. Mr. Sowell never said that the psychosis that he was suffering from had any impact on his behavior toward the victims. The most he said was that it kept him out of the room. He never said that the voices told him to strangle someone. He never said that the voices told him to do anything with the bodies. He said the voices would comment on things, would say things like, "You're going to be fine," or "It's going to be okay." But in fact, they never had anything to do with the direct relationship to the crime. So what you're talking about are really guilt-based issues. I was not asked to respond about guilt-based issues. And so the whole point about not taking it into consideration, I took it into consideration and I weighed it out.
But Dr. Woods, your total involvement in this case, you can't look at it with blinders on. I mean, there's no indication in this case, based on everything you've known, that Mr. Sowell did not know the difference between right and wrong. You're not have a problem with that, do you?
Absolutely, that's absolutely correct, and that was my finding as well, that he did. So,
because that's one of the things we're going to talk about when what you were referred to do.
okay.
All right. But getting back to the topic of malingering.
Yes.
All right. And let's talk about some behavior evidence from the time of the offense. Okay?
Sure.
Now, whether or not such evidence that I'm going to list to you is evidence of impaired or unimpaired cognitive function. Okay?
Okay.
One, the fact that he wrapped the bodies of the victims in plastic and duct tape.
Yes.
Two, carried loads of dirt up to his third floor crawl space and down to the basement.
Yes.
Three, he dug graves for 5 victims in his backyard without being spotted. Okay. 4, he transported the concealed bodies to the graves and buried them without being spotted. And he took other steps to prevent discovery of these bodies, such as blocking windows, vents, and doors. Okay?
Yes.
This behavior, is that indicative of cognitive impairment or lack of cognitive impairment?
It's really not indicative of either one. I mean, it's really not indicative of either one.
Why do you say that?
Because, first of all, what we're looking at is behavior that one could do if they were cognitively impaired or not.
This behavior that I just described, do you see any signs of obsessive compulsive disorder there?
I did not examine the wrapping of the bodies, nor did I examine the quality of the digging of the graves. So I really couldn't say.